Welcome to Brainish English Stories.
There are important people in the public parks and even among the homeless people who sleep there. Valance felt this but did not know it for sure. When he left his good life and stepped into the chaos, he ended up in Madison Square. The air was sharp and cold like a strict schoolgirl. Young May breathed in the fresh air among the new leaves on the trees. Valance buttoned his coat, lit his last cigarette, and sat on a bench. For 3 minutes, he felt a little sad about spending the last $100 he had when the bike cop stopped his last car ride. Then he checked all his pockets and found no money. He had given up his apartment that morning. His furniture was sold to pay some debts. His clothes, except what he was wearing, were given to his servant for back wages. As he sat there, he had no bed, no food, no money for a streetcar, or even a flower for his buttonhole, unless he asked friends for help or lied to get them. So, he chose to stay in the park. All this happened because his uncle cut him off and gave him no more money. This was because Valance did not listen to his uncle about a certain girl who was not part of this story. Another nephew, who used to be the favorite, had disappeared a long time ago. Now, they were looking for him to bring him back. So, Valance fell from his good life and joined the poor people in the park. As he sat there, he leaned back on the hard bench and blew smoke up to the tree branches. Losing everything made him feel free and strangely happy. He felt like a person who cuts loose a parachute and lets the balloon float away. It was almost 10 o'clock. Not many people were on the benches. The park people, who fight the cold in autumn, are slow to come out when spring is still chilly. Then a man got up from a seat near the fountain and came to sit next to Valance. He looked like he could be young or old. He smelled bad from staying in cheap places. He hadn't used a razor or comb for a long time. He drank a lot. He asked for a match, which is how people in the park introduce themselves, and then he started talking. "You are not one of the regular people here," he said to Valance. "I can tell from your nice clothes. You just stopped for a moment on your way through the park. Do you mind if I talk to you for a while? I need to be with someone. I am scared, very scared. I told 2 or 3 people here about it, and they think I'm crazy. Let me tell you, I only had a couple of pretzels and an apple to eat today. Tomorrow, I will get $3 million, and that restaurant with the cars outside will be too cheap for me to eat in. You don't believe it, do you?" "No problem," said Valance with a laugh. "I ate lunch there yesterday. Tonight, I couldn't buy a 5-cent cup of coffee. You don't look like one of us. Well, I guess these things happen. I used to be rich some years ago. What made you lose everything?" I lost my job," said Valance. "This city is a terrible place," the man continued. "One day you were eating from fancy plates, and the next you were eating cheap food. I've had a lot of bad luck. For 5 years, I've been almost like a beggar. I grew up rich and didn't have to work. Let me tell you, I need to talk to somebody because I am scared, very scared. My name is Ide. You wouldn't think that old Paulding, one of the rich men on Riverside Drive, is my uncle, would you? But he is. I lived in his house once and had all the money I wanted. Hey, do you have money for a couple of drinks? What is your name?" "Dawson," said Valance. "No, I'm sorry, but I have no money. I've been living for a week in a coal cellar on Division Street. Ide went on, with a thief they call Blinky Morris. I had nowhere else to go. While I was out today, a man with some papers was there asking for me. I thought he was a cop, so I didn't go back until after dark. He left a letter for me. Hey, Dawson, it was from a big lawyer, Meade. I've seen his sign on in street. Paulding wants me to come back and be his heir again and spend his money. I have to go to the lawyer's office at 10 tomorrow and be rich again. Heir to $3 million, Dawson, and $10,000 a year for spending money. And I'm scared, very scared. The man jumped to his feet and raised his shaking arms above his head. He took a deep breath and cried loudly. Valance grabbed his arm and made him sit back down on the bench. Be quiet, he said, sounding a little angry. People would think you lost a lot of money instead of getting some. What are you scared of? Ide crouched and shook on the bench. He held on to Valance's sleeve, and even in the dim light, Valance could see drops of sweat on his forehead from fear. I'm scared something will happen to me before morning. I don't know what, something to stop me from getting that money. I'm scared a tree will fall on me, a cab will run over me, or a stone will drop on me from a roof or something. I was never scared before. I've sat in this park many nights without knowing where my breakfast would come from, but now it's different. I love money, Dawson. I'm happy when it's in my hands, and people are nice to me, with the music and flowers and nice clothes all around. When I knew I was poor, I didn't mind. I was even happy sitting here in old clothes and hungry, listening to the fountain and watching the carriages go by. But now, the money is almost mine, and I can't wait 12 hours, Dawson. I can't wait. So many things could happen to me. I could go blind. I might get very sick. The world might end before I could. I jumped to his feet again and screamed. People on the benches moved and started to look. Valance took his arm. Come and walk, he said gently. Try to calm down. There is no need to be so scared. Nothing is going to happen to you. One night is like any other. That's right, said Ide. Stay with me, Dawson. That's a good idea. Walk with me for a while. I've never been like this before, and I've had many bad things happen. Do you think you could get us a little lunch, old friend? I'm too scared to ask for food myself. Valance led his friend up the almost empty Fifth Avenue, then west along the 30s towards Broadway. Wait here a few minutes, he said, leaving Ide in a quiet and dark place. He went into a hotel he knew well and walked to the bar like he used to. There's a poor guy outside, Jimmy, he said to the bartender, who says he's hungry and looks it. You know what they do when you give them money. Make a sandwich or two for him, and I'll make sure he eats it. Sure, Mr. Valance, said the bartender. Not everyone is lying. I don't like to see anyone go hungry. He put a lot of food into a napkin. Valance took it and joined his friend. Ide grabbed the food quickly. I haven't had free lunch this good in a year, he said. Aren't you going to eat, Dawson? I'm not hungry, thanks, said Valance. We'll go back to the square, said Ide. The police won't bother us there. I'll save the rest of this ham and stuff for our breakfast. I won't eat any more. I'm scared I'll get sick. What if I die from cramps or something tonight and never get to touch that money again? It's 11 hours until I see that lawyer. You won't leave me, will you, Dawson? I'm scared something might happen. You don't have anywhere to go, do you? No, said Valance. Nowhere tonight. I'll share a bench with you. You stay calm, said Ide. If what you told me is true, I'd think a man who lost a good job in one day would be very upset. I think I already said, Valance laughed, that I would think a man who was about to get a lot of money tomorrow would feel relaxed and calm. It's funny, I'd said, how people react differently. Here's your bench, Dawson, right next to mine. The light doesn't shine in your eyes here. Say, Dawson, I'll ask the old man to give you a letter to someone about a job when I get home. You've helped me a lot tonight. I don't think I could have made it through the night if I hadn't met you. Thank you, said Valance. Do you lie down or sit up on these when you sleep? For hours, Valance looked at the stars through the tree branches and listened to the horses' hooves hitting the street. His mind was busy, but his feelings were asleep. He felt no regret, fear, pain, or discomfort. Even when he thought of the girl, she seemed as far away as the stars he was looking at. He remembered the silly actions of his friend and laughed softly, without real happiness. Soon, the city was noisy with the daily army of milk wagons. Valance fell asleep on his uncomfortable bench. At 10 o'clock the next day, the two men stood at the door of Lawyer Meade's office on N Street. Ide was more nervous than ever as the time got closer, and Valance didn't want to leave him alone, scared of the dangers he feared. When they entered the office, Lawyer Meade looked at them in surprise. He and Valance were old friends. After greeting Valance, he turned to Ide, who stood with a white face and shaking limbs, waiting for the important news. I sent a second letter to your address last night, Mr. Ide, he said. I learned this morning that you were not there to get it. The letter says that Mr. Paulding has changed his mind about taking you back. He has decided not to, and wants you to know that nothing will change between you and him. Ide stopped shaking suddenly. The color came back to his face, and he stood up straight. His jaw moved forward a little, and his eyes shone. He pushed back his old hat with one hand, and held out the other hand towards the lawyer. He took a long breath and then laughed bitterly. Tell old Paulding he can go to the devil, he said, loudly and clearly, and turned and walked out of the office with a firm and lively step. Lawyer Meade turned to Valance and smiled. I am glad you came in, he said kindly. Your uncle wants you to come home at once. He has accepted the situation that made him act quickly, and he wants to say that all will be as— Hey, Adams, shouted Lawyer Meade, stopping his sentence and calling to his clerk, bring a glass of water. Mr. Valance has fainted.